Greetings, listeners. This is Abir Sikder, the host and creator of Local Global Leaders. For this episode, titled Work the Problem, I spoke with Burney Jenkins, the mayor of Georgetown, Kentucky. We discussed how the mayor manages political situations, how he runs a city, and key actions his administration has taken to grow our economy, to create jobs, and to make Georgetown a wonderful place to live. Mayor Jenkins also talked about his faith, his background as a school teacher, as a coach, as a principal, and even as a referee. And I especially appreciate how through all these discussions, the mayor emphasized key lessons, including the importance of mentorship throughout his life. And it's a really great time for him to talk about that, given that this month, January, is National Mentoring Month. Hope you all enjoy the episode. All right, everyone, this is Abir Sikder with another new episode of the Local Global Leaders podcast. I'm so honored today to be joined by Georgetown Mayor Burney Jenkins. Mayor Jenkins, thank you so much for joining me for today's interview.
Thank you for having me.
It's such a great honor to have you, and I'm a resident of the city, so it's just so great to meet you. And I've lived in Georgetown, loved it, seen so many great things happening here, and just to get to meet you is just such a great honor. Just wanted to say that.
Okay.
But starting off, I want to know who Burney Jenkins is and how he became a leader. So can you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us what you want them to know about you right off the bat?
Well, my name is Burney Jenkins. I was born and raised in Clarksville, Tennessee. I'm in a family there was 11 of us. Oh, wow. We lived in Section 8 housing in Clarksville, Tennessee. Parents, education-wise, was not at a high level. I think my dad finished 8th grade, and my mom, I think she did finish high school. But nevertheless, the one thing that they did teach me is about hard work and treating people with respect and being kind with people. And they always told me that at the end of the day, you got to be right by people. You got to do the right thing for people. And if you're able to do that, you can always lay your head down at night and say, I did what I thought was best for people. Going forward, I ended up coming to Georgetown College. And that happened really by I call it divine intervention. As I was walking out of the guidance counselor office in 1971, I was talking to her about going to college. And ended up, she was talking about, during that time, as you know, I grew up in the 50s and 60s, where racial segregation, and it was on all-time high. I can remember going to separate bathrooms and water fountains that says colors in white. Going to the theater, we only could go on a certain day, and we had to sit in the balcony. And those things, I couldn't sit at the counter. I had to sit in the back of the bus on some public transportation. So I lived all that. So when people talk about that, I have first-hand knowledge of that. But that in itself didn't kept me from actually doing things I wanted to do later on in life. So back to the story, as I was leaving the office, the guidance counselor's office, she had made a comment to me that, when I was saying I was going to go to college, she said, maybe you ought to think about doing something like a custodial type job or something where it was, to me, it was kind of like, okay, you're trying to tell me that I'm a person going to graduate with honors, and you're going to tell me that I'm not good enough to do anything else but some type of menial job. That kind of upset me. So, I didn't show myself. I just kind of left. I said, well, thank you very much. As I was walking out the door, and this is where this divine intervention comes in, something told me to look down to my right. And I kind of said, look down to your right. So I looked down to my right, and there was a brochure that she had on the desk, and I picked the one that says Georgetown College. And I looked, I said, well, this is an interesting place. And I started the process, and so I got accepted. So in the summer of, I think, July the 9th, 10th and 11th, I went on a Greyhound bus, 13-hour Greyhound bus from Clarksville, Tennessee, and ended up getting here at 8:30 that night, and was met by people from the Georgetown College admissions office, and they took me to my dorm. That's the first time and only time I've ever been in Georgetown College, and the rest is history.
Wow.
So
It's amazing. Yeah, you just felt that divine spark. Just something told you that this was meant to be, right?
Yes.
I appreciate you sharing that all about your life, your family. I mean, yeah, I even as a student and nerd for history, I just forget it wasn't that long ago. And also, like you shared about segregation, about these divisions. We still see some effects of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people that that's something that never going away, because that's something that's learned. People teach people to be that way. People are not born to be that way. You either teach people, So if you're going to change things, you have to stop teaching it. I often told people that, if I was a grandparent and I had these issues with people's diversity and so on, and my child would not let them come visit me because of that, because they didn't want to be poisoned by that, I can understand that. Because I think that's how you fix those things, is that you as a parent have to decide, you know how things work. You have to decide, okay, my child's not going to be that way. So, and if parents say, well, you're not going to let me come. No, I'm sorry. Because I'm not going to have my child poisoned by that, because if I'm teaching my child that, then what do you think he's going to teach his child? And that's the cycle. So you cut that cycle by having somebody take the stance as, we're not going down that road.
Yeah, you need to have those guides, those mentors, often family, parents, right, to really, teach these things correctly. Because, like I said, people are taught these things. They're not born that way.
Right. And my parents was I'm telling you what, they were, like I said, they was not the most educated, but I'm going to tell you what, they were smart in a lot of ways. The wisdom that they instilled in us, having 11 kids, there was days we went hungry and all that, but we always had a roof over our head. And they always tried to do the right thing for us. Now, there was times I didn't agree with it, but nevertheless, in their hearts of hearts, they were trying to teach us a lesson. And the lesson was, the world is going to be cruel. There's days that you're going to get out in the world and people are not going to care, and people can be very, very cruel. But what you got to do as a person is rise above that. You don't have to waddle down with them and be involved with that. Somewhere along the line, somebody got to be the big adult in this. Somebody's got to rise above that and say to yourself, okay, so that's the path you're going to take. I'm going to take the pathway of the high road and do what's right.
So it sounds like that's a really tough lesson for a parent to have to teach. Be like, the world is cruel, it's tough, but it's really important for them to spread that message. And it sounds like they really did a good job of that.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
I want to I think you've talked a lot from the what you've experienced from segregation and civil rights struggle to your family. But tell us more about what motivates you to be a leader in your community.
Well, I'm going to go back to the time, as I said, growing up, I always felt I had this sense of calling to be a servant of people, and that I always felt that was my calling. Every job that I have worked, I've never worked for myself. I've always worked for somebody. As a educator, my stakeholders were the kids. As a coach for football and basketball, the players on the field and on the basketball court was my stakeholders. As a sports official, which I referee for more than 50 years now, again, the players and the school that I went to visit and the fans, that's who I worked for. And now as mayor of the city of Georgetown, the stakeholders are the people that elected me to do this job. And so that to me is what leadership is. And that I came from a long line of doing that. And even in high school, I always got involved. I was not one of those who was to sit back and just watch the world go by. Because you got to be the one, if you want change, you got to help facilitate change. And you got to be the one to help orchestrate it. And when you get in a position where you can make change, and if you've been preaching change, then you need to make change. even though it may be a tough change to make. But you make that change so people know that, hey, you know what? Things are not going to be the same. He is going to talk about making change, doing something different. That's going to be better for people.
That's amazing to hear. Like, yeah, you said you just kind of felt that drive even in high school, even as a kid, that you had to just be a part of it, be involved, right?
Yes.
That's great. And then, specifically what, you talked about being a servant for people, a servant to your stakeholders. What inspired you to enter politics? Do you think it would be that? And do you think a younger Burney Jenkins knew that you'd be mayor one day?
Well, I'll tell you what, going in 1953 when I was born and going into that, in the environment of with that culture back in those days, and if you were to tell me in 1953 or even in 1960 or in 1970 or 80s that Burney Jenkins would be the mayor for the city of Georgetown, I would say you have lost your mind. But I tell people God knew. My faith in him has never changed. And that no matter what is going on in my life, I know that I continue to look to the hills from which cometh my help. I'm a child of God. I am a sinner saved by grace. And I keep that instilled every day. That when you go out into the world, especially in the world that people in this position come at you from all sides. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants something. And people are going to get mad at you because of the fact they don't think you're doing enough. Or they think you're doing too much. Or you're not adhering to this group or to that group. And, and people can be cruel at coming at you in this position. A lot of people don't mind getting in the papers and social media and blast your name all there. But what you got to do, you keep strong to your convictions, to your values. And this job is, and when I decided to run, was really based on some friends coming to me and they said, you need to run for politics, for city office. I said, nah, I'm not a politician. That's not in my, no. I said, I see how that works. I can't do that. And the reason for that is because of my background as an official, I had to cut the cake down the middle. You have to be fair on both sides. If it wasn't good for this side, it can't be good for this side. So you got to find some type of where you negotiate or where you can actually collaborate to where it's going to be good for the whole, not for the half. Not for the have-nots and not for those that have. It can't be that way. So, you can be a multimillionaire or you can live in Section 8 housing. Same is true. You got to be fair with people no matter where they came from. And so I've always felt that, having that quality, and like I said, when they came and asked me to do that, I said, I don't think I want to do that. But once again, this divine intervention came. And so when I decided to run, I kept getting this, I don't know, because I was going against, I call it the establishment. Because here it was, I was going against a former student that I had in school.
Oh, wow.
He was a former student of mine, and he had been on council for a long time. Oh, wow. Outstanding young man. You can't say nothing bad about him. He was a quality kind of guy. And so here I am, and he had a lot of backing. I've never done this before. I didn't know where to start with, so when I went in to sign, I paid that $50 registration fee, and then I asked myself, now what do I do? I don't have a campaign manager, all that stuff. How do I raise money to do what you got to do? And here I'm going against somebody who's probably was well known in the community, been on council for 20 some odd years. Wow. I mean, had the family name in the community. I said, I am. It's like David and Goliath. So here I am, and I just kept doing. I don't know if I want to do this. And once again, this divine intervention says, "You'll be all right. Just do this." And so I started and had a few friends, good close friends, come in, and I would say I had probably first started out probably anywhere from 10 to 12 people in my camp that was helping me get started. I started May 26th of 2022 when I started running the campaign. Uh-huh. And kept campaigning up to the day before the election. And what happened, and I said this is one of those divine and God moments, people came out of the woodworks that I never even knew. They came and said, well, I want to help people do this. Well, here, I'm going to give you your campaign here. Now, being an educator for 46 years here, some of the kids that I taught are now, adults. They knew me.
Yeah.
So I had a fan base that I didn't realize that I had that established 46 years ago by doing this. And everybody said, oh, that's Mr. Jenkins. Oh, I had him in school. Great person. Yeah.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, when the election day came, we done some remarkable things in the history. Number one, I won every precinct.
Oh, wow.
Every facet. The early returns, absentee, and on the day, every precinct, every facet. And becoming the first African-American mayor in the history of this city since it was founded. And winning by a margin of close to 2,000 votes. No, never happened. It's always been pretty close. So if you don't think God had something to do with this, I would say I will fight you on that one.
Yeah, it sounds like yes, your hard work, your dedication, but also, you weren't thinking about politics or about yourself, just thinking about having that faith throughout your life, and that's really what brought you here, right?
Yeah. And like I said, I was just going to be, at the time, I just retired from being in education. And I knew when I started, and I said, I can't, go back to work and actually run for this. So I just said, okay, that May, when I finished up my last part of the year, I said, I'm not going back. I'm going to retire. So at the point, I was just going to retire and just do something I don't know what I was going to do. My wife had a list of things she probably wanted me to do. And when I said I was going to run, I asked her, I said, well, you tell me, if this is something you think we want to do. And, my wife is now, at the time, we had found out that she had cancer.
Oh, wow.
And she had cancer of the bile duct of the liver, which is a rare type of cancer. She's still dealing with it. And when I said, now, I don't have to do this. I can drop out. And she said, people are depending on you. You threw your name, you threw your hat in the ring. Finish the course. We'll figure it out. And that to me meant a lot. You talk about somebody teaching you about courage. And as she was going through her treatments and so on, the sickness and the radiation, the chemo, and me trying to do this job here and still trying to do, and as I did in my State of the City address, it's one thing I learned about this job. You have to keep family first, but you also got to balance this, because I'm a person who, when I take a job or something, I don't want to do it haphazard. I want to give it my best. But I also got to understand that you have a family too. You have a wife that's sick, that you have to make sure that, she gets all she needed. And, it's gotten to a point now where I'm pretty much her. She still can do a lot of things. She still works and all that, but there's times I'm her caretaker. I'm the person got to do this and cook for her or whatever, So I leave this job here. I go home and be the husband and be the caretaker. And, sometimes unexpected things happen, but I think that builds your character. That also teaches you about toughness in the line of fire. And, like I said, you just have to learn to deal with that. There's things in life that's going to happen that you're never going to expect. And you can sit in the corner and holler, woe is me, and feel sorry for yourself. Or you say, okay, all right, so this is what it is. You just pray each day, and you get up, put your clothes on, go to work, and try to do the best you can by people.
Yeah, it sounds like that, the faith in God you both have, but also the faith you have in each other, like her still saying, hey, even though I'm going through this, I want you to continue this run, and,
Yeah.
and then you, even as mayor, as I said, like still being there for her, helping her.
Mm-hmm.
That's just amazing to hear that story.
Mm.
And of course, she said she's still doing things well. I hope that continues going well, and of
Yeah.
course hope that health goes well.
So far, we've gone back through in our last reports we've had through our treatments. It's still there, but has gotten to a point where it has increased in size or got out into the body system or has actually spread it, and that's a good thing. We did a brain scan, CAT scan, a couple of weeks ago, and I laughed at her, and they told her that there's your brain scan was good. I said, honey, see there, you do have a brain. That's it. So there you go. She kind of laughed about that, and that made me feel good that she was able to smile. Because, and what even more so made me smile, that I told myself I'm gonna take some time.
Mm-hmm.
Because the good thing about it, people sometimes notice, and my workers here notice. They came and said, Mayor, are you okay? I said, because you're not usually, you're doing something a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And I just simply explained to them, I said, no, I'm not. Because I was battling with this and that, and they gave me some good advice. And, that's a good thing about having good people working with you. And they said, this is a job. What do you used to tell us all the time? I told them, families first. I had three requirements when I told everybody who came to work for the city of Georgetown. And this we're talking about leadership and mentoring. Number one is families first. Second thing is, you will be your job. But keeping that in mind, just take it back. The first thing I told him is no surprises. And then your family, and then this job. And I said that, if you're going to work for me as the mayor and for the city of Georgetown, you have to make people first in every decision every day. And if you can't do that, then you can't work. And to me, that's more like my leadership style. If I try to tell people, I try to lead by example. I try to make sure that mentoring, that there is a pecking order. God has got to be first. I tell them that too. But there's a pecking order. This is just a job. It ain't the end of the world. Somebody's going to take this spot. If I don't decide to run in 2 more years, somebody's going to be the new mayor and going to be dealing with some of the same problems I'm dealing with. Or if I do decide to go another term at it, then okay. But at the end of the day, you still got to have your values that you instill on people. And I always try to tell them, don't take it personal. When people come at you, don't take it personal. Rise above it. And I like what NASA does. NASA always says, work the problem. Once you get that problem worked, work the next problem. Then the next problem. So that's what you do.
That's amazing to hear about all this. You talked a lot about your work in education. How did your background as an educator influence your decisions to be a leader and to engage in politics? And what are some of the biggest leadership lessons you've learned from being a teacher and a coach as well?
Like I said, being a football coach, basketball coach, and being a teacher itself, taking part in everything, and like I said, being that leader. I always wanted to be the person who always wanted the best for people, and I wanted the best out of myself. So as a teacher, I always wanted my kids to get the best that I could give them each day. Mm-hmm. As a coach, I wanted the best for my kids. And also as the mayor, I'm very competitive. I'm competitive by nature. Mm-hmm. I always want the best. I want the best for people. I want the best fire, police, have the best roads, have the best tour. When people come here, I want them to feel wowed that, wow, this is Georgetown, man, what a great place. And I want people not just to come here to visit. I want them to come here, visit, then come back. Just possibly stay here. And we want this to be inviting. But as for being the leadership style, education taught me a lot of lessons. One, that you have to expect the unexpected and be able to adjust. As a teacher, you may have a plan. You have to have a plan. But even your plans don't always work the way you want to put it down. As a football coach, when I put a play sheet out, it worked every time on paper. The only people messed it up when my kids got out on the field and did it. I said, people, this worked. I did it. Every time I done this worked.
Yeah.
So what you got to say, you got to tell them is that, this didn't work. Why? You have to have another plan. You have to take a step back and look at something and change something. So education has taught me about planning. Education has taught me about perseverance. It taught me about procedures and policies. Government is slow. Very slow. And sometimes it can be discouraging. But you still fight the fight. And I learned that in education that there's things that you have to do that you don't want to do. Because you have to do it because somebody is telling you have to do it.
Yeah.
You're following down the line. The education department says these kids got to know this. So therefore you're saying, my kids need to learn how to read right. Why am I teaching them algebra when they cannot even read on the 7th grade level? They're in the 7th grade, but they're reading on the 2nd grade level. And here we got people out in the world today. We've got college kids. When it comes to communication, can't do that. They can do it on their cell phones and text it. But have a conversation, it's tough for a lot of them to do. And we have to teach people how to do that. We need to teach, this is what I learned from education. We got to help people to become, later on in life, as an educator, I wanted my kids to be, when they get into the world, to be a functional person that's going to take part in the world. That they're going to be able to contribute to the world and be able to compete in the world. Not just get there and hope and pray that they can just get by. To advocate for themselves. I always advocated for myself. That was taught by my parents. If you want something, then you advocate for it. And you work towards it. You give them a reason to say yes and not to say no. You make it where if you were competing against everybody else, when they look at you, they can say, that's the person we want.
And the thing is, it's important I'm also a former educator myself, so to make sure that to advocate for ourselves, teach students these self-advocacy skills, and to really empower them to survive and to not just survive, but thrive in the world,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, anybody can survive. Anybody can survive. But there's those people who not just surviving, but they're surviving because of what they do. Do avocation, do trying to, learn skills that will help them to navigate when difficulties come in their lives.
And so it's amazing to hear about the background as an educator and as a coach as well, making those plans, whether it's a curriculum, being told what to do, or making the gameplay plans. You mentioned that you were also a referee too.
Yeah.
I see you're a referee.
Matter of fact, on that wall there, that was my first game in the NFL.
Oh, wow.
I worked in 2009. That was my first game. That was Indianapolis Colts playing the Cincinnati Bengals. And that was my first time I got an opportunity to meet Peyton Manning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was on the sideline and I was waiting. And I got a chance to meet him. That was Efforts James.
Oh,
he played for the Colts at that time. And here's a picture of me in my uniform. I went up at used to be Paul Brown Stadium, and that's where I got a chance to work. And I worked there. I worked NCAA FCS National Championship game in 2009. That's what this ring stands for. I got a chance to work the National Championship game. It was Montana and Villanova, and I got a chance to work that in 2009. I've been blessed to be a very successful sports official from high school on to college, working not just on the professional level, but in college, working football, basketball, and baseball, not only state championship games, but also in the college level. And that comes from, you taking heart, you working at it. People's not going to give it to you because they think they have to give it to you. Mm-hmm. Being a minority, they are looking for minorities, especially in the realm of sports officiating. And just because you're black doesn't mean that you should be given everything. I don't want people to give me nothing. Mm-hmm. I want you, if you're giving this to me because you feel that I've earned it. And that, yes, I'm going to have to do a little bit more than anybody else. I know in this job here, doing things that I do, people may look at it differently than what somebody else did. Mm-hmm. And there is a certain criteria, there are certain requirements that was not expected of them, but is expected of me. And sometimes people, there are cool people in the world, are hoping you fail. Mm-hmm. They hope you mess this up so they can say, I told you so. Mm-hmm. So what you do is you don't give them ammo to shoot at you. And you're always on the move because a moving target is always hard to hit. Yeah. And I'm not going to give them the ammo to shoot at me. I'm going to make it tough on them. I'm going to make a decision that I think is best for people. I use the advice of my staff as well as going out in the community. And I don't sit in my office. As mayor, I don't think that's what you do. I think you got to get out to people because the only way I know what concerns people have, you go out there and have a conversation with them. Well, I'm at Kroger's and someone they'll stop me, I'll stop and talk with them. When I took this job in 2023, January 3rd, I made it right then. I called the newspaper and I told Mike Scoggins, I said, Mike, here's your news headline. Georgetown's open for business. And what that meant was that people can come in and talk to the mayor as long as I wasn't, meeting or so on. If I'm just like I'm sitting in my office today, it was kind of, I don't have that much to do today. I've had people come out the street and say, well, can I talk to the mayor? They would come in and say, yo, what can I do for you? That's a rarity. Yeah. People don't think that, man, I got a chance to come sit and talk to the mayor today. I mean, he wasn't able to help me what I want, but he said, okay, here's where you probably could go to get help. We can't do that, but let me give you some resources where you probably could do that. Mm-hmm. And people just want to be heard. Yeah. People want you to be acknowledged that you're hearing them, that you're not just sitting in this high tower office, running the city, don't care what they think. They come in and say, hey, help me to understand this particular policy that you're putting in place. Okay? This is my reason behind that. And then after you talk to them, they say, well, I didn't never thought about that way. And when you get out in the community, and I try to get to a lot of events when I can. Everybody wants you to come to every event. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at it, if you look at this calendar, these are all people trying to get me to do things. And I have to but I always try to take an opportunity if it involves something where I'm going to be with some people or speak with people or talk with people, I always try to put that on the top burner to do. Because one of my campaign things is on my phone here. Used to be, it would be on my heading here. It just simply said that I'm the people's mayor. And had a picture of me doing that, but I couldn't get it up to come up. That's about it. So.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear all these experiences. I mean, from being a referee to an educator to the struggles you've overcome. That's really influenced your leadership journey. And I know you've talked about some of the struggles you've encountered on that journey. Could you tell us more about, like, what are some of the biggest struggles you've encountered as mayor? Like, what are...
Well, I'll tell you what, the big, from day one, you remember earlier I talked about if you're going to talk about change, and you got to be able to facilitate change when that change comes. So during the campaign, one of the big things is talking about change. That we need to change things. How we do that. Change how the way we talk with people, or change how to do, be the kind of person where you're going to go out and meet people where they are. Not sit in the office and expect them to come to you all the time. Meet them. But I made two of the toughest decisions I had to make. I ended up firing my police chief and my chief administrative officer. And I did that, I did an interview with everybody here. And I just felt in my heart of hearts that I think just those two positions I need to change. And for what I wanted to see accomplished. Now they weren't bad people, they didn't do a bad job, that wasn't it. But I prayed about it, but my heart came back to me and said, this is what you need to do. And I made that change. And they came out of the woodwork at the first council meeting for about 3 hours, man. I tell you what, when we got there doing public comments, they just came after me. And I this is where you, as an official, when things start going at you, you have that look in your face, and I didn't respond. I looked them in the eyes. Well, okay, thank you very much. Next. I didn't change my expression. I didn't say, I just let them, hey, get it off the chest. But if you're going to facilitate change, and you talk about change, then you got to make change. Because if you don't make change, if you keep things same way as they always are, then what people going to say? Well, hell, you just like everybody else. You talk about change, but you haven't done anything. So what you do, you change. So we came in, we changed some things. That was 2 changes, but we also changed how we do things in this office. Open door policy. We never did have that, hardly. How we invest our money. How we do our road funds and so on. And getting people when they come in. We, doing anything to help people. We have what we call the 50-50 sidewalk. Well, people don't understand that really your sidewalks in your home neighborhood is your problem. You're supposed to be taking care of it. But we have a program where we try to incentivize people to repair that. So what we do is we have what we call 50-50. And you can apply for funding through the city and we'll send people out and we'll go in and look at and if it meets the qualification, what you'll do is we'll say, okay, go ahead and get an invoice there. You get it fixed, we'll pay half of it. And we do a lot of other things like that we try to do the best for the city. We go out and do, I brought in a grants administrator because I felt that if we can leverage grant funding, it would take the burdens off of me trying to tax people. And that was one of the big, and the other biggest challenge, which it happened last night at city council meeting, we had been trying to do what we call a economic development where we had the city of Lexington, Madison County, Berea, the city of Richmond, Scott County, and Georgetown. Well, we were going to figure out a way where we're going to leverage funds to help this region to be economically developed where we could compete. And we wanted to bring in jobs. So we identified some land here in Scott County. We was going to be the first to do it. And we had the land picked out and all that. We was going through the process. And we really wanted to, in my heart of hearts, I wanted to bring jobs here so they don't have to tax people. The cost of services, police, fire, water, sewer, roads, trash, services for that cost. We're a growing city. We got to manage this growth. Because as you grow, you're going to have more services needed. And we, we really worked on this hard and really felt that this was the right way to go. But there are some people in the community that didn't think so, and I get that. But to see the big picture is that I got to provide services. I could get it from you and tax you, and you're not going to like it. Or I bring in jobs. When 60 to 70% of my revenue is coming from jobs, occupational tax, and all that, bringing jobs is the best thing. Property tax for us is $2.2 million, or 2.6, somewhere along in there, versus 27, 28 million from jobs. And we also did some investments. That was a struggle, trying to get revenue. So we thought outside the box. When I came in, I said, how much money do we have in our fund balance? They gave me the amount. I said, so what are we doing with it? Well, we got it in the bank. Well, what? It just sits in the bank? We're doing what? Well, he's worrying about 1.1%. What? I said, so let's invest. Let's take some of our fund balance money here and invest it. Well, we did that. And this year, through our investment, we made about $1.8 million. Oh,
wow.
Now, that may not be there every year, but the fact of the matter is, had we been doing this all along, think where we would be. So, but anyway, been trying to get this regional project, and last night we had in City Council, we had to vote on the interlocal agreement to give me the power to continue negotiation to do this. Mm-hmm. And they turned it down. Mm-hmm. We voted against it, 2-6. And it was disheartening. To me, I was angry and I was hurt. But the reason when I wrote I kind of sent a letter out to the rest of the group that, I'm really hurt that didn't work out to get this approved. I felt like I let the team down because I couldn't get across the finish line with my group, and that bothers me. But that's a lesson learned, that you're going to have disappointments, but you got to learn, like I learned before. You got to pick up and go on.
And it's so you wanted to bring all that change. You knew that it'd be tough, and it's still is like unfortunately some of the things you fight for is still failures, right? Unfortunately.
No, absolutely. But you still got power. We're not going to give up the ship. We may have to take a different approach, but we're still going to go after it, because I think that one of the big things I want to try to do here is we got to have what we call a quality of life for people, to improve that. And that means there's nothing hard much here for families and for youth. We have those youth sports and all that, but things are, I would love to bring something like Lex Live on a smaller version of Georgetown. I was in Richmond. They got what called Galaxy, and it's a international entertainment. And what it is, it has those games in there. You got bowling, got a theater. We can do that. And I'm going to try to talk to some local developers here and see. I said, hey, how do we get this here? How do we get this? We want something where people don't have to go to Lexington to get entertainment. They can stay here to do it. To meet the needs of our elderly, having a community center where you can hold events and other things, and whatever the need may be, to help from where you 2-year-old or 90-year-old, and something for families. I know they got the pavilion and all that, but I still think we need just a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. It's really inspiring to hear that all those things that could be coming forward for all those populations. And you shared, some of those bigger struggles you've encountered as mayor. Do you also have examples of experience with toxic leadership you've seen, whether as mayor or before, and what you've learned from those experiences?
Well, I tell you, and I learned this I was not only an educator in the classroom, I became principal
Oh,
because of a toxic a toxic situation that occurred, and the principal created a very toxic environment. With the staff, it was just tough going to work. She really didn't support her staff. When parents came in to complain, instead of you trying to support your teachers and working some here, and I've seen it where she actually chastised the teacher in front of the parent. That created a very toxic thing. And people complained, both parents and teachers. They complained to the superintendent. And it just so happened the secretary called and said, "Mr. Jenkins, Superintendent wants to see you in his office this afternoon after get off." So I thought, oh Lord, I'm going to get fired. What did I do? And when I came in, he sat down and he said, when it gets to a point where you're in Kroger's and they're attacking you about your principal, then I need to do something. He says, as of 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, you will now be the principal of Georgetown Middle School because I'm firing your principal. And I went, what? So
what a call.
So I came back next day. Of course, you went there and people was wondering what's going on. So I sent something out, emailed to everybody, says we need to have a meeting in the library tomorrow morning at boom. And I came in, I said, you all, newsflash, for the next 30-some days, I'm now the principal of Georgetown Middle School. And they kind of, what? I said, yeah. I said, and then I put some perimeters in and tried to change some things. And because I had been there for a long time anyway, so I knew the culture there and they knew me. And what I did, I said, I got to create an environment that has to be positive. So what I did was, and it was after all the testing was over with, so we just had those few days left where, we're just trying to hang on, go get kids through for the summer. So I got in and I said, I got to do something that's going to be really impactful for teachers to give them a sense of, okay, they're going to be able to do their job rest of the year without that. So I said, first of all, if you have trouble with kids, don't just send them to the office. You call me, I'll come get them. Because I want them to let them know we're the ones running the business. We're the ones still in charge. And another thing is, I said, give me a list of what we call your high flyers. The ones that always say, they're not even passing lunch. That are always causing disruption and keep you from doing your job. So they gave me a list. So 10 days when school was out, I went and took that list and prioritized. I took them to school. You're going to get to go home early. I said, I just took them out of school. And my reason was that, they're not going to fail. It was over with. But we're going to have school. And they're going to have to get in and continue to teach the classroom. And that was a positive environment for them. They were like, whoa. And they were so grateful for the fact that they didn't have to worry about anything going the rest of the year to do their job. And the kids were able to, even those days, still continue to learn and not be held hostage because some kids, and that's what we face today. That oftentimes in the classroom, and I can speak frankly of this, that your hands are tied and certain kids has such a profound impact on you and the educational process of other kids that keeps them from learning. Because you're dealing with them. I know the law says they got right to education. I get that. And I'm not saying that you take them out and bury them in a hole. But you gotta also understand that, yes, that person should be educated and has a right. But when that right infringes on other people's rights to be educated, then something has to change. And that itself, well, to me, and there are now in the education and even in the job force, there are some toxic, and when people just don't want to go to work.
Yeah.
But, nowadays, one thing that COVID taught us, I think it kind of helped with some of the toxic environment that some people was, because they got to stay at home and work.
Mm-hmm.
And some people still work from home. My wife still works from home. She works for the University of Kentucky. She's the director of what we call a community-based work transition program. And that job is taking special need kids and training them with the schools to become some type of either workforce or going and working in the work, or even going to college, or being able to survive in the environment as adults.
Yes. It's funny when you talk about those students who have that impact on other students and teachers. I mean, I can still remember some of those students from my days of teaching of who like disrupted the classroom, who caused me extra stress. So.
Yeah. And I get it. It is still a constant battle.
Mm-hmm.
And that, a lot of people just don't understand the stress that teachers are under.
Mm-hmm. It's tough.
They expect teachers to be parents, guidance counselors, psychologists, a doctor, social worker. They expect the teachers to do all these things for these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, we don't, through pay structure, really show them that we really appreciate what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a teacher appreciation week once a year. Okay, good. But that's just 1 week a year.
Mm-hmm.
What about the next week? What about the next? What about the week before that? Or the week before that? Or the month before that? How are we showing how we appreciate our teachers?
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing something? And I'm actually looking at something there. And matter of fact, this came from a citizen that I met with on occasion, and who said, we need to do something. And so we're going to try to get a program together where get some of the businesses in Georgetown to give discounts to teachers and educators. And, they do that for the military, which is great because of their service. But also let's recognize the service of teachers. Because they're on the battlefield too.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a different type of battlefield.
Yep.
And they have casualties.
Yeah.
And they go in and they don't have body armor on. They go in just as they are and take the full blunt of a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing I did as mayor is I wanted to make sure, and this is where this leadership role come in, talking about being a mentor to people,
Mm-hmm.
is that I came in, I said, number one, I want this place to be being competitive, I want this to be a place of an employee of choice. So when people come in to look for a job, they see Georgetown, we get a job, they'll look in there and see what we offer, and they say, that's where I want to work. And so what I did was, we came in, I said, how much we're paying people? I said, we gotta let people know we appreciate them. These are my workers here. They're boots on the ground every day. So I said, how can we do this? Well, you have what we call the cost of living adjustment. So as elected leaders, there's a certain range that we can go with. So that range went from 1 to 6%. So they came and said, well, Mary, you get to get, as elected leader, you get a 6% cost of living raise. I said, oh, okay, nice. All right, so you can do that, and you can, however you want to do with your staff and everything, you can figure out what you want to do with them. It can go anywhere from 1 to 6. And, oh, okay. So what should we give them? I said, they said, yeah, well, let's give them about 3.5%. I said, oh, okay. So let me think about that. Took about 30 seconds. So here's my answer to that. We'll give them 3.5%, but we're going to take a 3.5%. Now we're going to take the 6. Everybody else gets 6, because that way, and they saw that, and we gave them 6%. They said, "Where's going to put your own budget?" I said, "We'll figure it out." The lesson to learn here is this: if people feel valued, they will work. Mm-hmm. And what is my ultimate goal as mayor? To be able to try to meet the needs of people in the community and give them the best service. If I'm investing in my people, oftentimes people want to do in government out to in. Try to please the people, and your people that's working for you, it's not thought of. Go in to out. Mm. Get the people that work for you, make them feel valued and appreciated, and they want to be here. Guess what? They're going to go work hard for you, and that will spill out because they'll go out and do their job for the people out there. And guess who ends up winning?
Hmm. Would you say that's then your leadership style or philosophy, showing that, valuing people, valuing constituents, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. You talked about some of this earlier. I kind of have what I call like my 3 components, my 3 M's of leadership. You mentioned mentorship, like being a supportive mentor, and there's also being a competent manager, and then being an effective motivator. Do you see these as like kind of 3 separate roles, or 3 things tied together to being a leader? And how do you distinguish between those various responsibilities?
Well, I think they can kind of interwoven together, because you have to be able to manage. You have to be able to give people instruction. You got to have a goal. You got to be able to delegate. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to make tough decisions. And you got to be able to, admit when you're wrong. That's all part of management. A lot of people won't do that. Say, well, I made a mistake. Okay. How do we fix it? And mentoring is doing by example. If people see you out there shaking hands with people, and people see me out here talking with people every day, then somebody else will say, well, man, here's a guy that is out there. Good example. We were out here for what we call we have what we call where we close downtown. We have some events downtown. And we used to have, in Lexington called Main Street Live. We down here, we call it Georgetown Live, or whatever we call it, where we, Party on the Square, where we close down Georgetown and people go up down the streets and so on. So I'm down here for a few. I try to go to as many of those as I can, because that way you get out among the people. And happen to see somebody that he was a police officer in Lexington. He worked in the bomb squad unit. And and I was walking around, and somebody, he said, well, who's that guy right there? He said, well, that's the mayor. He said, that's the mayor? And as I was sitting there talking with him and other people, and he says, he just comes down and just hangs out like this. I said, yeah. He said, you don't find that anywhere. Mm-hmm. He said, I don't find that in Lexington or anywhere else, that the mayor is actually hanging out and just, okay, because I think that's where you're supposed to be. You got to be up where people can see you. You can't sit in the office all day, and that's what you be. So mentoring is being able to see you out there in the public, and actually, because when people see me, and people of color see me out there, young people, and they see the mayor out there, that makes a difference. Something else I do in mentorship, and I visit every school. One of the campaign promises I made is this: I told myself, if I won every year that I'm mayor, I'm going in and visit every school every year. And I've done it twice. This year, my second year, starting there, and I'm doing that. I'm trying to be finishing up. Because I think it's important for them to see the person that makes the decision. Mm-hmm. And it's also a good mentor or motivation for kids of diversity to see, oh, there is somebody like me that can do a big time job like this. Man, he's the mayor. Mm-hmm. Boy, that opens up possibilities for me. Mm-hmm. But unless they see that, they don't know. Another good example, we were having trouble getting minorities for the police force. So he said, well, we'll go out to some of these campuses and do that. And we'll go over to K-State. I said, that's not going to do you any good. He said, why not? You're not going to be affected over there. I'm going with you. So I walk in, we go in, and I'm in there, and the professor who invited us over to do that, to talk to his class, and my police chief was my new police chief, he was doing that, and also with me, here's the mayor of Georgetown. So they see, whoa. So I'm not telling, I said, hey, we'd like for you to apply here at Georgetown, and if you fit the bill, we would love to have you. But I could sell that because it's coming from a person who understands what their struggles are. Mm-hmm. A person that hasn't really experienced that, white can't go into a black neighborhood and expect to get something done. But if a black person goes in and say, who's in a higher office, here are the possibilities. You're able to sell it because people can see there is possibilities. Mm-hmm. There is opportunities for me. So.
It's amazing that you had to exemplify that work, I think, is really important. And what advice do you have for people who hope to become leaders, specifically for anyone who wants to get involved in politics?
Well, one thing I say is you gotta have a goal for yourself. And you can't let the job change your values. Mm-hmm. I was Burney Jenkins before I was mayor. I'm Burney Jenkins as the mayor. And when I leave this job, I'm still going to be Burney Jenkins. There are values. There's what I call non-negotiables. Values that I will never negotiate or change. And no job's going to make me change those values. Be yourself. And don't try to be somebody else. People can spot phony people. Mm-hmm. And you gotta walk the walk. You gotta talk the talk. If you don't talk the talk, you gotta walk the walk. If you're a person of compassion, you gotta show compassion. If you're a person who says that you are listening to people, you gotta go out there and talk to them and listen to them. And understand that you're human, mm-hmm. that you're gonna make mistakes. And it's okay to say, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. People will appreciate you more when you're honest. And let me tell you what, in politics, that's a rare bird. Because people think everybody in politics are dishonest. Mm-hmm. And I tell them, you're wrong. There are some good people in politics that do have good values. And there are some people who's corrupt and it's all about power. But there's a lot of us who really wants to do the right thing. And we really try to put people first in every decision every day.
That's great to hear. I appreciate you sharing all that about leadership development. I wanted to ask a few questions about the local global context of your leadership and how you're kind of empowering Kentucky. First, I could start with a fun question. Any leadership lessons you've learned from global resources? And to me, those are like books, movies, or even pop culture.
Well, like I said, I am. I watch Law and Order. Sometimes I law about that and I like those type things because it talks about the government.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about how government works. But as a different level, but just the hierarchy, the laws, and all that, and how you have to be fair with people, and that you can't always put people in a box.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta understand that you are a servant of people, not the master of people. And the law is supposed to work for everybody, but it doesn't work for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
There's times the law don't work for everybody, but that doesn't keep you for doing your best to make it work as best you can for those.
Mm-hmm.
But learning from that, globally, this is what that regional project idea was, because we was not only was trying to get state funding, we was getting federal funding. We had took a trip to Washington D.C.
Okay.
We went to the White House.
Oh.
We sat across from the people that advised the president on funding. We had sent this project to them. They had it beforehand. When we got there, they said, "We want to applaud you all. You have 6 different government agencies coming together to do something for the common good of people." We can't get that done here in Washington, D.C. You can't get that hardly on the world stage. But you all managed to do this, and you come from, and they said, "Oh yeah, we think that's a great idea." And they gave us some things that says, "Also, what you think about coming back and having to sit down with this later on this?"
Oh, wow.
But like I said, it fell through, so, But, and we think we would have got some more federal funding to where this project would have gotten done with the least amount of investment by people. And that to me would have got us on the global stage, because it would have gotten companies in from just not around the United States. We could have had a company come in from around the world and want to come to Georgetown. Well, Toyota did. So that to me wanted to be on the global stage, this right here. And we still want to do that. We're still going to keep working on trying to do some, getting some shovel-ready land to where we can land some businesses. Also, I want to try to work with, on the global stage, is try to do something with affordable housing.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to start small. We're going to go in some of these neighborhoods with some of these houses, and we're going to buy these houses. We're going to fix them up and turn them over to Habitat for Humanities and let them manage it.
Wow.
To get our most vulnerable people that can't afford this.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then we're also trying to talk with a group of specially run. They're an organization that actually manages apartments and so on. What we do is we buy the land, we give the land, or we lease it to them for $1 a year for 99 years, and we get there and we get people to come in. They build apartments and they manage it. Low, affordable housing where people can come in and actually afford a house. And what we're trying to do with that, affordable housing on the global stage, trying to get people that, is that a person who can afford a $400,000 house but living in a $300,000 house, if we can offer more of those type of houses, they can move there. And the people who can afford a $300,000 house but lives in a $200,000 house, move them up the line. So people who can afford that range can fall in those spots.
Mm-hmm. Are there any important leadership role models you look up to, particularly any global leaders around the world, whether in government or business or anything else?
You know, you know what? This may sound silly, but the person, I had an opportunity to sit down and meet Michael Jordan.
Oh, wow.
We was running a referees camp over in Louisville, Kentucky, and his two boys were playing on a team that he sponsored and paid for out of Chicago. So we was doing a camp, and he comes over, and he just kind of walked by, and he looks at us, and we got cameras, and we're talking to Mike, fishing on the floor. He goes, "What are y'all doing?" He said, "We're having a referees camp." He says, "Oh, really?" It was about 10, 15 years ago. He said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, I'm going to sit over with you." So for the next 3 days, he comes and sits with us.
Wow.
And he's talking to us and so on. And he told me about his story. And I don't know if you heard Michael Jordan's story. It is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. That people told him that he would never be able to play basketball, never be good at it. He got cut every year. Mm-hmm. Until he got, I think, close to being a junior in high school. And he was the last guy to get picked because they said they needed 15. They said, "Well, who's left?" "Well, we'll just take Michael." They keep Michael. He don't play very much. When the season started and so on, he wasn't getting much playing time. And they were down in the first half like 10, 15 points. And their point guard got hurt. Mm. So they said, "Who we got?" But it's a backup. "Well, we got a number 2, number 1, 3 guy. Well, the only guy we got over here is Michael Jordan." He said, "How much?" "Okay, just put him in there. He ain't gonna much matter anyway. We're getting beat anyway." Michael comes in, drops down 14 points, catches them up, they go ahead. Second half, he throws you another 17. He scores 31 points in the game. And they had told Michael that he would never be able to play. And the coach said, "Oh, hell, I made a big mistake here." And lesson he told me, and that's the same lesson I learned when I walked out of that office, in the guy's office, is never prove people wrong. Their expectation of you, they may expect that you're going to do this. Do what they don't expect. Don't let them, they expect you to be this. You're wrong. Because they never would expect, "Man, I never expected you to have done this." And that story, back to when me being mayor, I went back a couple months ago, a couple of years ago, and I just happened to be at Austin Peay State University. I was refereeing a football game. I still do replay for the NCAA. And I happened to be walking to there, and I saw her, and she's kind of looking at me, and I went, and she kept looking at me, and I went, "Okay." So she kind of walked up close, and I kind of walked. I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "You look familiar." I said, "Yeah." I said, "So do you." "Miss Gardner, how you doing?" "Burney Jenkins?" "Yes, ma'am, that's me." "Well, what are you doing for yourself now?" "Well, I had taught school for 46 years, referee for 50, still here today. I'm now the mayor for the 6th largest city in Kentucky." What she expected, what she thought, was more than what she thought. Mm-hmm. She said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah." Well, that's good. So.
You said you proved them wrong.
Yeah. In a good way.
Yeah. You talked about earlier, looking at sort of like global issues. How do you reflect on global leadership here as a mayor, and how does what's happening in the world affect you as a leader here in Kentucky?
Well, you see things going on where people are being mistreated, and people not just getting mistreated over there; they'll still get mistreated over here. Mm-hmm. And the things that we do, we have wars and everything going all over the world. I see that. But I also see that we have wars here.
Yeah.
That we need to address. I see that we give money to countries so they can fight. But I also see that there's money should be spent here to help fight some of the things that we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Arm the police better. Give teachers what they need to be able to teach classrooms. For a country to be as influent and rich as we are, it is so hurting to see that we have people that are hungry and are homeless. Now, some is by design. Some people, no matter what you do, don't want it. The Bible, Jesus always told them, the poor will always be with you. They ain't ever going to leave you. Because some people choose to be that way. But there's other people, by unfortunate circumstance, because the cost of living went up, they couldn't afford to do anything else. And they lose their house. How do we not have things in place where a person experiencing difficulties that we should be able to have some way, okay, we're going to let you stay in another 30 days, 60 days, and help somehow, here's what resources where they get a job to get back on their feet before they get to that point.
Yeah, it's like I said, there's, while these global conflicts are happening, yeah, like there are these wars at home we need to address and help.
Yeah, and when you talk about the thing that Hamas and all that's going on, and the anti-Semitism that's going on here, people people resonated with that. Mm-hmm. It don't take people long who breed hatred to take that and use it here. And spread that poison to where it makes it, as I talked about earlier, the racism, just all the mean things they do to each other, mm-hmm. to people of different diversities. The one thing I learned about kids, if you've been around them long enough, and as an educator you see with kids, especially small kids, toddlers, you look at them, they may get there, have a disagreement, they'll fist fight, and they forget what they done. Or they'll go, and you go look, and you have a kid, a toddler goes over and sits into the sand pile. He goes sits with the other kids. He doesn't go look, oh, he's a black kid, I ain't go sit by him. He goes sits with a kid. And they engage. If only adults could do that. That we go sit in the sand pile and not look at your color of your skin, but sit in the sand pile and have a conversation. Mm-hmm. They always say that kids learn from adults. A lot of times adults can learn from kids. Because they are pure at heart. Yeah. They just look at things to, oh, that's another kid. That's another body that looks like, hey, that's another small person. And they just come and just, there you go. So.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, it's like I said, we're trying to be mentors to young people, but we can
absolutely
learn from them.
And we can learn from young people.
Mm-hmm.
When I go to school and visit those kids, I learn a lot from them. This American, one thing they said, what are you going to do about getting? I said, I'm working on that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, my last question for you, what advice do you have for people who are leaders, whether they're leading organizations, movements, or just individuals themselves who like you, who want to put Georgetown and or Kentucky at large, put us on the global map, show everyone what does Kentucky have to offer to the world? What advice do you have for them?
Well, the thing about is that when you go in, you're going to sell your product.
You're good.
If you're going to sell your product, or you're going to sell yourself, or you want to try to get people to come to you or to follow what you're trying to do, to be a good leader, you got to be a good follower. Mm. You got to be able to follow your guidelines, follow your values, And you also got to let people know, it's not about the movement itself. It's about the people that's in that movement. It's about, what do you stand for? Are you a person of good character? Do you always want to try to do the right thing? Even sometimes it's the toughest thing to do. And if anything I can tell people that's in a leadership role, as I said before, don't sell yourself just to keep the job. Do your job and you'll keep your job.
It's a really important message. Like you said earlier, stick to your values, be true to yourself, have that faith, and you said don't sell yourself out.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mayor Jenkins, I just want to say thank you so much for
Thank you.
Today. It was really great to get to know about you, for sharing your life, these stories of divine intervention, your education experience, and of course, thank you for leading this great city. We really appreciate the work
Thank you
you've done
very
there
much.
as well.
Thank you
really
again, sir.
Appreciate it. Of
Thank
course.
you. All right.
Awesome. That concludes my interview with Burney Jenkins. I really appreciate his great insights about leading a city, about staying close to his people, and even about law and order. Mayor Jenkins is someone who really embraces humility. He's someone who knows the importance of really sticking to his values, and he really appreciates the importance of active community engagement. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to learn more, visit the city of Georgetown, Kentucky, here in Scott County. My next episode will feature Maddie Duff, the student body president of the University of Kentucky. That episode will be released in February. Remember to live local and think global, fellow changemakers.